In this video, I'm going to walk through adding a feature to the Selenium code in the Ruby bindings. We already have a class in Selenium Server. So this is the Selenium Server class, and this class allows us to download the grid from GitHub and start it. Recently, Boney has added to the Selenium Manager the ability to download the grid through the binary rather than having to have that logic in the Ruby code directly. And so we're going to add that feature to Selenium Manager, and we'll take a look at what we need to do in the server class here in order to make that work. Always a good place to start is with the specifications. We have two server specifications. We have the unit tests, and then we have the integration tests. And the unit tests obviously are very specific to the GitHub and then all of the different methods that goes into downloading specific things from GitHub. I'm actually going to start with the integration tests. So what we have right now is downloads the latest version, downloads the specified version, and then starts and stops the server. And at the end, we delete the jar. I guess we can run this to make sure that it's working as expected. Great, so the current code is working. So how we're going to do this is we're going to do context. We don't want to get rid of the old way of doing things yet because Selenium Manager is still in beta. So what we would like to do is have the Selenium Manager download it, and if it doesn't work, have the fallback be the current implementation. So let's set this as context when downloading from GitHub. So we just care about the downloads. The starting and the stopping doesn't matter. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. I want to be able to test both with Selenium Manager. So I want to be able to test that the latest version and the specified version work both the new way and the old way. So one of the things we could do is we could change this method to be the new way versus the old way, but that's not backwards compatible. We want this to be completely seamless to the end user. So let's take a look in the server class here at download. And what we can do here, so let's just add so right now what it's doing, it's getting the latest version, it's figuring out what the name is, it's checking to see if it's already been downloaded, and we're returning that, and then otherwise it's going through this download process. And then once it has been downloaded, it's going to return the location of that process, and because it's in the same directory, the location and the file name for Ruby is the same. And so let's do Selenium. Let's create a new method here. Selenium Manager download version. This is required version. So this is, we'll call this download file name. So download file name equals this, return download file name if all right, so we'll try it, and if it doesn't work, then we'll do this this next step. So let's go ahead and create this method. We can make this private. So I'm gonna pull this down. Latest. So this is API private. We can even make this actually private. Essentially, we're going to replace the other implementation with this once we're ready to go. So we'll just set this as private, and then we can delete that later. So what is the code going to look like? We need to access the Selenium Manager. So that is WebDriver, Selenium Manager, and the method is going to be, so right now to get the drivers, it's driver path. So let's call this grid path. And we're going to pass in the required version. Now, by default above, we were using latest. And so let us change this. Required version equals nil if required version is latest. So grid path will handle this automatically. If it's nil is how we're going to do this. And so we can change the current implementation so that latest is nil, which is what this method is going to expect. So let's go ahead and create that method in Selenium Manager. So we've got the bin path, which gets us the binary. We've got the driver path, which gets us the location of the driver. Then the private classes are to execute the binary. So let's take this and we're going to put it, this is not going to be private, this has to be public. And because we're inside the self definition, we don't need this. So here we go. So what is this going to look like here? The driver path, so we could kind of go off the driver path for what we're doing. And we're logging a debug message here. So sure, let's log a debug message. Well, we'll log the debug messages will get logged later. We don't need that right here. So so it's generating the command, and if you look at the command that it's generating here, it's just showing what all things need to be done. Now what we need is, so the command starts out binary browser. I'm just going to grab this and put this here for now. Oops. So the command that we want to execute is binary. It's the same, right? When you get Selenium Manager, but it's not browser, it's grid. And then we might have a version here, we might not. And so that's optional. So I think what we need to do here, and if we look, both output JSON is going to be the same. We want that to be the same for both grid and driver path. So let's take this out for now. It has to be, we have to be getting this back in JSON so we can probably parse it. Instead of options browser name here, this is going to be a required version, but it's not always going to be there. So what we want is binary grid, and then we're going to add the command required version if required version, right? So if it's not nil, we're going to add it. And this is why we didn't want latest in here at all. We'll just pass in the version, and if it's not specified, that'll get passed in. And so once we get the command, it's the same kind of thing here. Essentially do the exact same thing that we're doing in, so we're going to run that command to get the location of the grid. And so we'll pass in the grid found at that location. And then we're going to assert that we can execute that and then pass back the location. So what we're missing still is this output and this JSON. And is there anything else in this command? This is driver specific, debug. We also kind of want debug here. So what we can do is when we go to this run command, let's actually take this command and let's add these things there instead of down here. So let's just steal this here and put this here. And we'll do the same thing with the output. output, and JSON. So plus equals, so we're going to do, all right, string literals for output and JSON. There we go. So we're going to add this, and we're going to add this, and so that applies both for generate command for the drivers and the grid path here. So now we've got binary grid, we pass in the version if there's a version, we run it, and when we run it, it's going to add that the output needs to be JSON and that we're going to turn on the debug if we're set to debug, and if the logger is set to debug. So this looks about right. So now let's go back to the integration test. So what are we expecting? So if we get this new location, it's not going to be in this location here. What we're expecting it to, we don't know where home is, and I don't really care. So let's just do include, and by default, this is going to give us .cache Selenium. I know what this is because I've seen where this goes. So .cache Selenium grid current version slash Selenium server dash current version .jar. Yeah, so this is right. So this is what I'm expecting here. So I'm expecting, file exists. We're testing it here. The Selenium Manager is already verifying that. So this is kind of an unnecessary thing to put here, but sure, let's assert it. So we're going to get the location. We're going to do these things, and then let's do the same here. We're saying to download 490. Let's, same thing here. It's going to be in cache Selenium grid. This is 4.9.0. And this is, oh, that's why this isn't. Don't mind me, I know what I'm doing. There we go. And this is 4.9.0. Selenium server 4.9.0, Selenium server dot. Yep, so this should be good. So let's see what happens when we run this. No, it doesn't like it. So, do we not have this in the right context? We don't. This needs to be in class. And I thought it was in class. Class self, right? So this needs to be run as a class method. And class methods are everything between line 61 and 165. So let's go down to 165. There we go. There we go. We'll put that there. Now let's try it. Nope, still doesn't like it. Download latest available assets. Download server. Private. Oh, because it's got self in here still, brother. Okay. You only put self in there if it's not nested inside the self class. So now what are we complaining about? Something new. It's not executable. Is a jar not executable? Let's just do file exist because I think that's sufficient. Oh, except we don't want to do that in assert. This is in platform. I don't want that. That's what we want. In Selenium Manager for grid, we are going to assert file. There we go. Now it appears to be getting what we expect. So the other question here is, how do we know for sure that it is getting using the new method and not the old method? What happens if the old method breaks? So I guess that's the thing, is we want to make sure that the old way is working. I'm going to close. Let's put the integration test here. So is the old way working? Let's first see what happens when in Selenium Manager, instead of location, let's return nil. So what we're expecting to happen in the server is that this grid path is now going to return nil. And so the download file name is going to be nil. And we don't want that. We want it to be an empty string, because then the file won't exist. So let's return an empty string. We could have done it differently, but this is fine. So what happens when we run this now? So the Selenium Manager should not be working, and it should be downloading via the old way, and it does not. So what is going on? Selenium server, when downloading, downloads the latest version, failure. Expected the location to include that. Okay, so this is good. So we got it, but it doesn't include our. So let's actually take a look at downloads from GitHub, right? So these assertions should be correct. Great. So it downloaded. The assertions for the old way are correct, and that's because we know that the new way is broken. So how can we do this without breaking this here? So we don't. So now we do want to just return the location here. And what we can do. So what we could do to make sure that this is actually working correctly, let's do it before. And we are going to allow Selenium Manager. We're going to allow it to receive grid path and call the original. So all we're doing here is essentially putting a spy on this so we can see whether or not this has been called. And so here we can say, oh wait, we don't care about grid path here, do we? It's going to get called either way. What we care about is whether let's have allow. When we do that, we do describe class, because that's the class we're in. So allow describe class to receive SM download instead of call original and return empty string. So this is essentially the same thing that we did before. So now for Selenium Manager, and then we want this to be, so this is actually going to be, so if we don't do anything and we run the old way, it's going to fail because it's going to use the new way and say that it's not at the location it expects. So now if we say yes, but don't use the new method, let's rerun it. And there we go. So now we have said, yes, don't use the new method. It'll force the old method. So how do we make sure that Selenium Manager here, this context, is using the new method and not the old method? So let's do the same thing. Let's grab I guess we can take, what's a good way to do this? We could try and do something saying that something here never gets called. You know what? We could just put all of this in So the other thing we can do here is I could change this and just change this to be GitHub download. This is probably the easiest way to do it, right? Yeah. Nice and simple. So here we go. Our download is either going to use this, and maybe we do want to go back to nil instead of empty string. So it's either this or it is GitHub download required version. So it's going to try this, and if it doesn't work, it's going to give us this. And so one of the things that we need to do here is that we're going to need to rescue. So that's the other thing we need to do. We haven't tested if there's an exception. Let's go ahead and add that test when we think of tests that we need to add. Let me go back and, so here we go. So in server class, we're going to do download, and I'm going to get rid of this stuff for now. I'll just put this work in progress. So I'm just going to comment that out there. This is what I want to eventually happen. I'm going to pull all of this here. Well, let's just copy it for now. We're going to put all of this in this method here. All right, so the question is, what happens if this errors? We need to make sure that it falls back correctly, right? Always make sure that your failure state is accommodated. So when downloading with Selenium Manager, let's say it falls back. Actually, and this is going to be, this is actually using GitHub, except for we're saying not to use that. So let's put that in here. So it uses GitHub when Selenium Manager has exception. So something like this. All right. So we are going to take we'll take this allow. Is this the right? I think this is the right. Yeah, that's the right method. Okay. So we are going to raise an exception with this. And so now it should behave like this is our expectation. So when there's an exception, the old method should be used, and this is what we want to see. And we haven't coded it that way. There's some kind of standard error. And actually what Selenium Manager will typically throw has to do with, like, it's going to assert files. So the exception is going to be a WebDriver error. So theoretically there's a WebDriver error, but when it comes down to it, any exception that we're getting, we want to ignore it and allow the old way to handle it. So we want Selenium Manager download to do. We don't have to do a begin. We can do a rescue here directly. We're going to we'll rescue all of standard error. And we're just going to pass nil back. So ideally, we would log something here, but the way that Ruby is doing logging right now, it's not set up. I want to come back and add some logging pieces into this method. The problem is this is the namespace is Selenium, not Selenium WebDriver, and we're pulling in the pieces from WebDriver we need. And right now, logger is at the the root level, and so I would have to pull all of Selenium into the server class here, which is honestly is probably fine, but we're going to try and be more careful about it. All right, yes. So theoretically, this should work now. We're going to get this or this. Do we want to check that what happens if file doesn't exist? What are we going to get from the download? It's just going to be nil. Location is nil. That's fine. That should give us the error we need. Or do we want to no, we want to throw an error here. We want to throw an error here. So we are going to return download file name if file exists, and then we're going to raise an exception here. What was the what am I looking for? It's an error, so it's a WebDriver error, WebDriver error. And I think that's the one I want to throw. WebDriver error, is that right? Selenium WebDriver error, WebDriver error. Okay, great. So we're going to raise this and say unable to locate grid. Except for that is not going to. This also isn't ideal because whatever we captured in this right here, this standard error, it's not getting passed back to. So we don't want to do it this way. I need that information to be in this method. So what we're going to do here is begin, download. This is where we're going to rescue a standard error and get the exception. And once we've rescued it, we will do this. All right, so if for some reason the GitHub download gives an exception, we'll get that exception. If we get this exception, so what we're going to do, we actually don't need this, do we? All right, so let's do this better. We're going to return this. And if there's an exception, it'll get rescued with this information. And we will try using the old method. And if that doesn't work, if it works, no, we don't actually want to. We want to make sure it exists too, right? All right, so location equals return location. What's the best logic here? This already is testing. I'm going to ignore that. We know that this is testing. It asserts that it exists here. So I'm not going to worry about it in this. We're going to return it. If there's an exception though, then it's going to download. But this one might not exist. We are not. We're not doing anything to validate the download there. So let's go back here. So location is this. Let's return location if it exists. And then if it doesn't, unable to locate grid to download, and then we can add the extra exception message here in case it exists. So what happens now? Come on. All right, so what happens when we run this now? There we go. So when there is an exception, it's using it. So let's run everything in here, see if I broke anything else. I did. So it doesn't like, yeah, it's returning. So what's going on? What did I screw up? This is, so it's returning an empty string. Oh, this has to return nil, right? Because we're checking if it's there. So let's try this. Let's just rerun these two. Doesn't like that at all. So why doesn't it exist is the question, because it should exist. All right, let's go ahead and debug. All right, so location is set to nil. Oh, that's right. So we're saying this is nil. I changed that logic again, didn't I? We know it can't be nil. So let's go back to, here's our, we actually want these to be the same, don't we? So we actually want it to raise an exception because it's not going to be nil or anything like that. So that essentially means that this is no longer necessary. So there we go. We figured out this is no longer necessary because the exception is what will tell us whether or not there's a problem. So this is just going to straight throw the exception, definitely send us back into the, let's go ahead and run all of this. Great, and now everything seems to be working. So now the trick is, so right now I'm on trunk. Really, I should have already checked out a new branch. So let's check out a new branch. This is going to be what? Ruby Selenium Manager server or grid. All right. So I changed 3 files. We added grid path. We removed. Actually, before I commit this, let's do 2 things. Let's run the linter. Make sure that the linter is good. No, it didn't like it. Oh, yeah, so let's just use that to auto correct everything, and then we'll look at everything when it's done. Everything's corrected. Great. Run it again, just make sure. No offenses. All right, so the other thing we are going to do is let's just run all of the unit tests, because those are quick and easy just to see. Yeah, see, stuff was not happy there. Oh. Okay, I see what's going on here. I am going to pause this video and fix this because it's not related to the rest of the code that we're working on, and I will be back. Okay, I'm back. I had to go and fix some unit tests from a previous commit. Everything was actually passing remotely, but based on how I have my RubyMine set up locally, things weren't passing, and I needed to add a couple lines in a couple places to fix that. Wasn't relevant for this video, so I paused it and took care of that, and now I'm back. So let's go ahead and run the unit tests from where we're at again and see what we have. All right, so these I'm expecting. So remember for the driver how we took out the output JSON from the run command for getting the driver? So the driver itself, the run method was not sent these. These were added in the run command now. We can, I guess, do run in Selenium Manager, right? We're adding that in there, so it's not going to be in this command anymore. So let's just go ahead and delete all of these. Well, and oops, and this last one. All right, so those should all pass now. And we just have this guy. What is going on here? It's saying that file is receiving exist with the expected download name. So let's debug through this. I'm actually not sure what this is. So the expected download file name is 10.2. So this is an invalid. So it's only downloading it if it's not present. So let's see what happens. I bet. Oh, yes. So what's going on here is Selenium Manager is trying to download it, and essentially it's calling exist on something. It's going to go to here. So let's go ahead and fast forward to. Oh, nope, it didn't even get there. It's in here, grid path, assert file. There we go. So that's what this is our mock. This is our first one. So on download, why is it not? So I want to see what's going on with this in grid path. So start here. Yes. So set the mock, actually execute on it. So there's our command. Why is it jumping straight to? Was it not getting the binary? All right, I'm confused. Frequent occurrence. What is binary? If we get binary, it's throwing an error getting the binary saying it's not a file. This is the thing that I thought I fixed. All right. So in the unit test here, it is going to this spec helper. This spec helper should be loading this file. So where's debug? Let us go back here and see where it hits. So the root directory is users Titus Fortner code Selenium. And then it's supposed to be adding, what is this showing? Bazel bin ruby lib. So then it's supposed to be looking for bin. Oh, I know what it is. That's right. This is going to be different depending on if I'm running it locally or if I'm running it remotely. And we need to set up, I remember what I did now. So in Selenium Manager, there is a bin path that's writable. Where am I actually setting this? Somewhere else. Here we go. I also have to set the bin path for running locally. So I just missed a line. Okay, there we go. This should do it. No, it did not do it. We need the whole thing. Selenium WebDriver. All right. And that's too long now, so let's grab this. I know the linter is going to complain, so let's just do this. So if the file exists, so essentially we have to add, so Bazel is generating assets that RubyMine doesn't know about when I'm executing by RubyMine. I would have to execute it with Bazel in order for it to see that. In order to be able to run these tests directly with RubyMine, because that's how I'm comfortable, essentially saying, adding to the load path the assets that are in these other places. And so I have to add both the lib directory to get all the dev tools generated things and some of the atoms. And then I'm going to add the bin directory, which is where Selenium Manager lives. And I need to specify in Selenium Manager that, yes, use the bin path in the Bazel file, not the one in the local directory, because it's not in the local directory. It gets added to that directory when it's built right before release. So let's try this again. All right, so it is still getting this twice. We're going to debug this again. And we're going to see that there's our mock. This is going to pass because it's going to find it now. So there we go. Where did it fail this time? It failed on running the command. So running the command. What was the error? Message. Oh, I see. Right. So when we try it with a number that a value that doesn't exist, we're getting this, which makes sense, but we might need to rescue that. So this is good information. This is good information. But so is the issue, this is a WebDriver error. So why is it not getting captured here? Let's go back in through here. We allow that. Run it. So here we go. We're going to capture the output. We get the output. The output essentially is the log here. So we have result and logs. Result is this error code. What is our status? The status is, yeah, so the exit code's 65, so this should complain. And then the logs say, the only thing in the logs is this error message. All right, so result should give us something interesting here. Yeah, so that's the result. So, okay, so it's not raising an exception. It has logs, and so we're going to log each of those things. And then if it has an exit status that's positive, which it does, it's going to raise this error. Unsuccessful command executed, and it's going to give the result, which is all of this. Unsuccessful response for the URL that we tried to hit. Okay, this is right. And so it raised that exception. And so then we try and do it with this download, with the old download. And that's what we expect. Did we try and hit? We didn't try to hit file exist on the old one, did we? This is checking for file exist somewhere. Oh, there we go. Return download file name if it already exists. So what this is saying, why wouldn't I see this already? So it's saying it's already cached somewhere, which is not really what we want either. I need to undo this. Let me take, oh, it's not letting me do that. All right. Come on. Nope. All right. Rerun this. We'll just do it the slow way. Yes. I don't care about these anymore. I don't care about these anymore. I don't care about you. It's making sure that it's not cached, and then once it knows it's not cached, it's downloading it. Don't think there is any, I mean, we're opening it, and so that might not be necessary to do this second one. For in download, we are verifying that it exists here. We might not need to verify that it exists because if there's an exception, it's going to get thrown. If there's, we literally just wrote it here. If there was a problem, we would rescue it, but then we would raise it. So really we have created it, we've opened it, if this didn't error, then we would have it. So I don't think there's any way for us to not have it. So it's going to error. So now we could just do this, rescue any error that shows up, and then just say unable to, I guess we could say download because that's the method we're actually in. Well, okay. Whatever. Unable to download grid for whatever reason. There we go. And then it'll specify that. Okay, now that we see the behavior there, let's just rerun all the specs, see if I broke anything. Yeah, I did break something. So that's not a good change. What don't we like? Oh, because of the, right, I'm an idiot. Yes, so we do need. We can do that though. That's good. So if it, guess we're doing, we could nest these, because it's never actually going to get this if this gives an exception. So we do need to begin rescue unable to locate grid with manager. Like I would log this typically, but we don't have access to the log right now. So let's, the logging code. So what is the whole message we want to be? So unable to locate grid with manager, and then we'll pass in the EX message. Or from GitHub. And then we can put ex2.message. And then this is message equals message. All right, let's try this again. Why is this unhappy? How did we break this one? Selenium. Oh, because am I mocking something out? So this is expecting an exception and didn't get it. Oh, I'm assuming that it's not going to find it because it's not there. Am I cheating? I think I'm cheating. All right, let's debug this one. It's a problem. You just keep diving into one thing after another. So Selenium Manager, I want to, this is checking if file exists. So this is in the binary. Yeah, binary. So let's just start there. So this is finding the Bazel bin, which is where we just changed it to. So that's probably what's going on here. Or Mac, there we go. The location, that is correct, it is there. Assert that it's there. So what is it that we are failing on? It's supposed to receive exist and return false. So assert file should include exist. No, assert executable should include assert file, which should include. Oh, interesting. Did this change so that it's not? All right, so this is one of the problems with mocking things out. Let's say this isn't a file. Because it wasn't a file before because it was looking in a directory that was empty, but then we actually pointed it to a directory that's not empty because that's actually what we want, and it wasn't actually calling the thing we were mocking out. So let's try running this, Is this pinned? Yes. No. All right. Rerun everything. Oh my goodness, great. All right, so let's double check our Rubocop. Make sure the linting is good. It didn't like a redundant return. They're both autocorrectable, so let's -A this and see what it is. This is server 83 and 85. So what does it have me doing? It's executing this. It'll return it if it returns something. If it errors, it'll rescue it. Then we have to begin, try this, and if it will return, otherwise it will rescue it. We're giving it the message, and then we're erasing it. Yep, okay, that's correct. So now let's take a look at, so I'm on trunk. I am going to check out a new branch, and I'm going to call it, or did I already check this out before? Well, let's see here. This is, we'll call this RB Manager Grid. Okay. What all have we changed? Let's double check, make sure everything's good. So we created this new method for grid path. We moved the output out of it. We moved the debugger line out of the grid command, or sorry, the driver commands. We put those both in the run command, the run method. So download, we moved all of this stuff to GH download. We just looked at that. That's what we want. So now Selenium Manager download. We're setting it to nil by default, passing it in to grid path method we just looked at. And this is, we just copy pasted this. We didn't make any changes to the old to keep it completely backwards compatible. And then, why did I remove this? It's not actually needed. I think I found out that I didn't need it before. So we just we essentially kept the default, and then the new stuff is just with downloading with Selenium Manager. We had to change that one and then remove all of the output JSONs, the 5 there. Yeah, and then I had to add this to specify to look in the bin, and that was just a RubyMine update. Okay, so I think we're good. All right, so let's finally just commit this. This is, what are we going to say here? We are going to say that implement downloading grid with Selenium Manager. I will go ahead and commit and push. Yeah, I guess I'll push it to my fork. Normally I don't push to fork because I can go straight to Selenium, but as I'm showing this off, let's do it the right way. All right, I can go to the console here. It gives me this nice handy link here for doing a pull request. Let me move this in here. All right, so here we go. We're implementing the implement downloading grid with Selenium Manager. I delete all this stuff. We've got a summary. Yes, I know contributing. Yes, I've got a summary. What is my description? So what changes did we make? And I usually do this in a bulletized format. We can scroll down and see, remind ourselves of everything. But pretty much it was just and that's being motivation and context. This is and essentially we already had something working, so the context for this is demonstrate that Selenium Manager binary grid download is correct. Well, let's remove network command executions from Selenium code and let the binary manage it, right? The more things across the project that we can put into that binary instead of all of the different bindings implementing their own version of it, the better. So types of changes, this is a new feature, should be completely backwards compatible. And I just fill that out. I'm not going to. What I am going to do what is this? Oh, that's not what I want. All right, what I am going to do is request. Yeah, Alex is the one that knows the Ruby here the best. But I'm also going to ask for Diego because he's probably also going to be doing some of this in the other languages. All right, that should work. So there we go. So one of the So if I look at the pull request here, it's at the top. Did it kick it off automatically? It doesn't always. Looks like it did. All right, so now I'm just going to wait for these checks to finish. And it's going to go through and run all of the Ruby tests. And then I'll see what that looks like. All right, thank you everyone for putting up with this long walkthrough that I was doing. Let me know if you like it. I'll do some more. And all right, thanks. Have a good day.